You tested for me? Okay, we have all you. Okay,
Directions again.
no,
Okay. All right. We're just gonna pick up that one.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us through our technical difficulties there. We'll continue the meeting, and right now we're going to come to the minutes for our June 12th meeting. Does anybody have any edits or additions to the minutes for the June 12th meeting? Hearing none, do I hear a motion for the disposition of those minutes?
Motion to approve, Shaw.
Mastel, second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shaw to approve and second by Commissioner Lansdale. All in favor of approving the June 12th minutes as they appear or were presented to you, say aye. Any opposed? That means that the ayes have it and we can keep rolling. The first order of business that we're going to take up this afternoon is electing vice chairs for our planning committee and our zoning committee. Unfortunately, at this moment, we do not have a quorum for our zone or for our planning committee, so we will defer that until a later time. For those of you who are on the zoning committee, the floor will be open now for anyone to nominate or self-nominate to be vice chair of the zoning committee. Do I hear anybody putting their name in the hat?
Commissioner Russell, I nominate Commissioner Will Russell for vice chair.
That's excellent, Will. Do I have any other nominations for vice chair of the zoning committee? I guess we'll do a simple vote, and those are on the zoning committee. All those in favor of the nomination of Commissioner Will Russell as the vice chair of the zoning committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Done. Commissioner Russell, congratulations. There will be a party later, and I'm sure the honors will just continue for weeks. And Commissioner Russell will join the executive committee and will be joined by the vice chair of the planning committee as soon as that person is appointed. So we'll keep going. This is a part that I want us to do going forward, and I call it comments from the commission. And as we go forward this year, one of the things I'd like for us to do is to be very aware of the things that we are all doing in the community. And so as we introduce ourselves, we go around a lot and it's like, so-and-so planning committee or whatever. I would like to get a little bit more from you guys in terms of how you've interacted with the community. And I do want to hopefully at this part of the introductions of the meeting, say exactly what you've done. So I'll start, and then we're gonna go around to Commissioner Seeley. If you've got something this month, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. But next month, hopefully we'll all have something to say about how we've interacted with the community. And during the last month, I talked at the District 1 Town Hall, also attended the District 4 Town Hall and Council Member Mitchell's Town Hall. Got to hang out with the Board of County Commissioners at their Environmental Stewardship Committee. I worked with some neighbors up in Hidden Valley who wanted to do a park or something, and some of the folks over in Elizabeth who are interested in finding out more about historic districts, excuse me, also have set in motion some things for us to work with neighborhood and business services. So those are the kinds of things that I did in the last 4 weeks. I don't expect everybody to do that much stuff, but if you can go to a community meeting, if you can go to a community area planning session, those are the types of things that I like to hear. So we'll just start, and if you've gone someplace in the last month, that's great. If not, we'll keep rolling. Clayton?
Well, I participated in 2 of the commission and community engagements last month. And then I've been working closely with the Noda neighborhood on park advocacy and spoke in front of the county commission about the park in Noda. So the future park in Noda, but yeah.
Okay, great.
Let me think about it. I know
Okay.
I've done some stuff, but.
We'll come
you know,
back
this
to
is
you.
On the spot, so I gotta prep.
Yeah.
Nothing extraordinary on my side. This is Commissioner Whitaker.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Russell, I too attended the District 4 Town Hall, and then I've met with two neighborhood groups in the Prosperity Village area to discuss the rezoning process and how it works and how it affects their neighborhoods and how they can be a part of that process.
Great.
It's Commissioner Blumenthal. Couple of quick things, like Commissioner Seeley was at one of the planning commission conversations and want to reinforce the value of partnering with other organizations or elected officials to increase turnout at some of the events and get more people in seats to frankly hear what we have to offer. On that note, I also had a very productive meeting with County Commissioner Jarrell. And he expressed interest in working with us to set up an event, not necessarily a town hall, but something put on by him to better educate his constituents about the planning commission, especially given everything going on. Lastly, we can kind of talk about the appropriate venue, or not venue, but the kind of pathway for this, but have been just throughout my private line of work in the real estate business, hearing a lot of feedback, positive and not negative, but criticisms, critiques of the UDO, and some things that have piqued my interest more than others, and would like to have a conversation about how, if there are some, let's call it productive text amendments, questions about how to amend certain things, what's the best way to at least see if that's even feasible, and then see what the pipeline would be for that. So again, not something we need to do right this second, but would be interested to learn more about how we can solicit feedback from other stakeholders in the community about how to make changes that I think tie into the comprehensive plan or actually something that we would want to look at. That's it for me.
Commissioner Gaston, this past month, I participated in the town hall that James Mitchell hosted, and I was on the panel discussion with developers and community. So one of the things we discussed was how the community and developers could work together. And we had a presentation about the Planning Commission and the new app that's out for our community residents. So that's something we definitely want to make sure that make sure anybody we come in contact with, let them know about the new app that's out so that they can see what's coming in their neighborhood.
Commissioner Lansdale, most of my engagement in the community has been at the grass tops level. The transportation designee for Planning Commission has taken my time, so I've attended the TCC, the Technical Coordinating Committee meetings, the Bicycle Pedestrian Work Group with CRTPO, also participated at the State Highway Safety Executive Committee level meeting dealing with statewide issues in the advance of the release of the Bicycle Best Practices Manual by NCDOT, and the ushering in the Vulnerable Road User Survey that's out now at the state level. We're also tracking on the transportation side, the engagement and input for the prioritization process at NCDOT that impacts our roadway investments here in this region, which directly impacts some of our work on the zoning committee meeting as well. And one issue of note is that there is some conversation that's being had at the CRTPO, our regional metropolitan planning organization, that deals with the changes to the weighted voting system at the CRTPO, which is very exciting. And that's it for me. I will say one other thing, that I enjoy watching you and all the others that are available to participate online in the town hall and community meetings. And thank you to staff for making those meetings available on YouTube for the public to address at any time. Thank you.
I have nothing of note and wish to not follow Commissioner Lansdale next time. Commissioner Shaw.
The rock star. Yeah, the Rolling Stones regretted following James Brown. Something was that, and it happens over and over again. Thanks, everybody. Again, this is something I'd like to do every month, because we can all understand that we're all out in the community find out, that somebody makes something that there's a cross pollination here that allows us. Now, we'll go forward on our agenda and we have our special guest this time is we're going to have an overview of historic districts, and we have Christy Harpst, who's the program manager for Historic Districts Commission, come. And we haven't had Christy in a while, and she's brought with her Krista Leinberger. And Krista, are you the new chair for HDC?
I'm the planning commission.
Okay, all right, cool beans. Can we get the lights dimmed so we don't get such a glare in here? Yeah. Yay, rock star.
Probably so people online can hear me. We're used to this. We meet in this room too with the mic situation and streaming. I am going to talk a lot about historic districts today. I also threw in some slides at the end if we have time about some of the new overlays as part of the UDO to talk over. But actually, let's see if I can move this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so just a brief overview about the different actions and tools available at the government level for preservation. Originally, we just had the local historic district overlay zoning until the new UDO came in place. And now we have the other two that are in the orange box, neighborhood character overlay and historic district street side, and then actually other three, and then residential infill overlay. This is a sliding scale of protection. So you start with National Register, which is wonderful and honorary and brings tax credits, but there's no protection with National Register. And then all the way over to custom, which is preservation easements, and those are applied by individual property owners. So the city government has nothing to do with preservation easements. You may hear a little bit about preservation easements from the Historic Landmarks Commission, but they're with the county and they have their own program. So what I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to start with the local historic district overlay zoning, and then if we have time, get into these other three. Let's see here. So just a brief kind of high level overview. There's two branches, government, nonprofit. I'm going to briefly talk about the National Park Service because that's where we talk about the National Register, but mostly we're going to be talking about the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Historic Landmark Commission and what they do, and more specifically, the Charlotte Historic District Commission, which is an arm of the city. But just, I include this so you know that there's lots of other things going on with community character at both the state and national level and local level. This is a chart showing the difference between National Register and local districts here in Charlotte. There's some overlap. The overlap is in the middle with Dilworth, Wesley Heights, and Hermitage Court. Hermitage Court is a street in Myers Park, and they are districts that are both National Register districts and local districts. So they get the benefit of being National Register with the tax credits and the honorary, the recognition of being on National Register, but they also have the requirements of going through the Historic District Commission with design review. Anyway, just all I want you to know here is, again, the National Register is honorary. It identifies there are benefits with tax credits, but local districts are where we have the design review and the zoning controls. Another brief overview about Historic Landmarks Commission. They are an entity of the county. There is some overlap between our two departments. And those are shown on the screen, just a smattering of examples. You have the Wadsworth House, you have the Wilmore School, the Fire Department in Fourth Ward, and the Van Landingham Estate. These buildings are both historic landmarks and within a local historic district. So owners of these properties have to go through two design review processes. They work with the Historic Landmarks Commission and the Historic District Commission. And over the past couple of years, we've started working a lot more closely with Historic Landmarks Commission to make the review process a little more seamless for these property owners. So they're not hearing one thing from landmarks and another thing from districts, and that we're working together from the start to make sure that the messaging is the same. The difference with landmarks is landmarks sometimes reviews interiors, and that's because there's a local tax abatement if you're a historic landmark. Historic districts only looks at the outside of buildings and properties. It's a map of all the local historic districts. I'm sure you're aware we've had 2 new ones in the past 2 years. 2020, we designated Oaklawn Park, and 2022, we designated McCrory Heights. And they are the first districts on the west side, our first mid-century architecture districts, and they're both historically African-American neighborhoods. So we were really thrilled to welcome them, have a few slides a little later on to talk more in depth about Oaklawn Park and McCrory Heights and the history there. But you can see all of the districts are really close in to the center city of Charlotte. They were the old streetcar districts that, and Dilworth is our biggest district, Hermitage Court is our smallest district. And the thing to know about local districts and their designation, it's a rezoning process. So I was here, I believe, last summer talking about McCrory Heights when going through the rezoning process and with the zoning committee and the public hearings. But it starts with the Historic District Commission, but ultimately it's not the commission's decision. The commission makes a recommendation to city council, and it is a city council action to rezone these neighborhoods and create a local historic district. Wanted to provide a snapshot of the data that we have in the historic districts. And the one I find the most interesting is that we're 5.5% of Charlotte's total land area. So we're not talking about a big part of Charlotte. Very, very small. We do review over 400 applications. That number is growing. And we have 14 commission members technically. Right now, we have 11 because we have some vacancies. Oaklawn Park, McCrory Heights, and Hermitage Court seats are vacant. At our meeting on Wednesday, the commission is reviewing applications for the McCrory Heights seat. So hopefully that will be filled shortly. We've been encouraging folks from the Oaklawn Park neighborhood to join us. We haven't had any interest yet. So if you know anyone who lives there, then please encourage them to talk to me or Krista about being a member of the district commission. A little bit more in depth, we do what we call a year in review, our annual report each May. And there are a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. So our application decisions, while we hear over 400 cases a year, I would say, 2/3 of them are handled at the administrative level. So staff is doing the review, and staff works one-on-one with property owners. We hold their hands throughout the whole process. We make site visits. We help connect them with resources. And then about 1/3 are handled through the full commission. And right down here is where I want to draw your attention. Out of those 410, there were only 8 cases that were denied. So we're talking, most everything is approved or approved with conditions. The 365-day delay is in reference to demolition cases. In North Carolina, we cannot prevent the demolition of historic properties in local districts. It's different in different states. Some state law you can, but in North Carolina, there's a state law that we can only delay demolition for a year. And that year is meant to give the applicant time to maybe find alternatives to demolition, whether it's considering an addition or selling the property. We partner with Preservation North Carolina, the statewide nonprofit, and more locally Preserve Mecklenburg, as well as the Historic Landmarks Commission. All three of those entities have the ability to purchase properties, put protective covenants on them, and resell them to a preservation-minded buyer. As far as the denied cases, again, 8 out of 410. And then this over here shows that how many are resubmitted or not resubmitted. And a lot of times the reason for denial is inappropriate materials, removal of historic details, or something's just way too big for the site. But again, if someone is denied and it is an issue of size, scale, massing, maybe for new construction, 9 times out of 10, those cases come back. And so that's what this case is. You work with staff, you come back, you work with the commission, maybe attend one of our pre-meeting workshops. And our goal is compliance and to help people get through the process. So we live by the design standards, as Krista will tell you. This is a manual for property owners, for the commission, so that they know what the expectations are of owning a property in one of the historic districts. And it is set up by, it gives an overview of each of the neighborhoods. And then it also talks about all of the design details for new construction of residential buildings, new construction of multifamily, new construction of commercial buildings, and then also how to take care of your property. What are some best practices in maintenance? How to look at energy efficiency. There's so much information in our design standards manual. It's available online. I forgot to bring a copy, but I can bring copies if anyone wants one. It's about that big. It's not terribly thick. It's like 100 pages. Oh, UDO way has it beat. Yeah, we're nowhere near that. Important thing to note, we look at all 4 sides of the building and the entirety of properties. So front yard, backyard, fencing, pools, decks, anything that's small, it's in the backyard, it's staff reviewed. The commission keeps for itself the bigger items, the new construction, the demolition, the major additions, projects you can see from the street. We do not regulate color, so we don't tell you what color to paint your house. I think there used to be a camo painted house on East Boulevard for the longest time. So we don't regulate that. The only thing we do regulate when it comes to paint is masonry, and require that masonry not be painted if it hasn't already been painted. And that's for both the integrity of the house and the brick. I can give a whole talk on why we don't paint masonry, but I won't get into that. We also don't regulate style. So we're not going to say, hey, you have to build a bungalow on this lot, or you have to build a Victorian house on this lot. It's not so much the style, it's about the various parts of the building and how those relate to the structures around it. You know, where's the foundation? Where are the window header heights? Where's the front porch? And making sure that all of the elements of the building align with what's around it. We don't regulate land use. We have an open process with our meetings are the second Wednesday of each month, and property owners, it's a public hearing. Property owners can come in and talk about, whether or not they support or don't support what their neighbors are doing. Oftentimes, we also use that as an educational method, because the property owners might talk about parking. Well, this project doesn't have enough parking spaces for our neighborhood. Parking's an issue in our neighborhood, and the commission cannot opine about parking because parking is not within our purview. We talk about your parking might need to be screened with some landscaping, but we do not set, number of parking spaces. That's all done by the underlying zoning. So unless we specifically talk about it, then it's handled by the underlying zoning. I think I already talked about a little bit of this, what staff looks at, what the commission looks at. We don't review any routine maintenance projects. So roofing, painting, foundation repair. We don't allow front yard parking. We do allow some modern materials. So some fiber cement siding. We haven't gotten to the point of allowing any vinyl or fiberglass for windows. And we can expedite emergency repair. State statute allows us to say if a tree falls on someone's house, we can turn that around in a day. We don't have to take that to the commission. If it is an emergency repair, we try and work as quickly as possible with these people who have, sustained damage and are going through a terrible time in their lives to help them get through our process really quickly. And the key thing is, commissioners don't have to like a project. It doesn't have to be to Krista Lineberger's personal taste or style. You take that out of it as a commissioner, correct? And you make sure that it fits the design standards, whether or not it barely meets the design standards or is the best project you've ever seen, it doesn't matter. They are not the design police and they're not there to design your building for you. We also, I guess I'll talk about this first. So staff reviews take about 30 days right now from the time you give us all of the information. Pre-pandemic, we were at 10 to 15 business days. We're hoping to get back there. We have had just an influx of applications. Everyone's working from home and wants a new office or a new accessory building, or we have had more pools in the past 3 years than we probably had in the past 15 years. So we're working through that, but basically if it's assigned to a staff member, that staff member is working with you throughout your whole project. And again, we make site visits, phone calls, emails, video calls, whatever you need to help you through your project. We're providing that support. We can even, some people on staff are trained in architecture and they can even help you with site planning and, doing some minor drawings. So full commission review. This is, again, we meet the second Wednesday of each month. We are quasi judicial, just like planning commission. So we follow it is very structured. We have a court reporter present who records all the motions. And we have it, you all know what quasi judicial, but it's really, I try and tell applicants, I know it's very structured and can be intimidating. Our goal is to work collaboratively with you. But you are, as an applicant, they are like the attorney in the situation. They're trying to use our design standard book to prove their case and why their application meets the design standards. And the commission are like the judges. So it's again, we allow for public participation and comment. Some cases get a lot more public participation than others. We also have a consent agenda process where, say it's a corner lot property and the project is visible and staff can't approve it, but staff says, well, this meets all of our design standards and staff is recommending approval. We send it to the commission as a recommended agenda item. And usually I'd say 9 times out of 10, 98% of the time, the commission votes to approve the project. And it is that has helped us work through some backlog issues very well. I'm very conservative with what I send to the consent agenda, as Krista will tell you. Once you've gone through either the full commission or the staff review, we issue something called a certificate of appropriateness. It is our version of a permit. It is accompanied by stamped plans. And then for large projects like new construction, major additions, we send out this approval placard that people post. Usually they'll post it with their building permit. We don't send them out for things like sheds or fences because by the time this gets sent out, the project's already done. But this works really well. If for some reason it doesn't get sent or it gets returned to us and someone doesn't get it, people will request this from us because they are very proud that they've gotten through the process. And then they also want to let their neighbors know that this was approved. So it helps for PR too. So the neighbors can know, oh, I have to go to the Historic District Commission if I want to do something. I'm going to switch totally gears, talk a little bit about Oaklawn Park. This is, most everyone probably knows where it's located. It's this little enclave that if you've driven through it, it's practically untouched by new development. Oaklawn Cemetery is right here. McCrory Heights is right here. And then Johnson C. Smith is over in here. And the neighborhood approached us back in 2018 and they were scared. They were scared. They saw what was going on around Johnson C. Smith, Smallwood, Biddleville, with some of the really, really large houses being built. They were also upset because they had started to get a few speculative developers that started painting the brick in the houses. This neighborhood is full of brick and stone houses, and they are so prideful of their community and the look of their community. And they were outraged at the developers who just didn't seem to care to be part of their community and were just in and out and not wanting to be a meaningful part of the community. But it is truly one of Charlotte's best preserved post-World War II neighborhoods. It was created in the late 50s, early 60s. And the gentleman who developed it, his name is Charles Irvin. And he was the city's most prolific suburban developer. And at one time, he was the 7th largest suburban developer in the entire nation. So this was a big deal. The houses look a lot like they did. There are people living in the houses that are still living there, they picked out the fixtures, they picked out all the design features, and they're still there today. Some notable history makers in this neighborhood include Dr. C.W. Williams. He was a pioneer in desegregating healthcare. Dr. Mary T. Harper. She was the co-founder of the museum that's now the Harvey Gantt Center for African American Arts and Culture. Reverend Raymond Worsley. He was a pastor at the city's leading Black Presbyterian church and a spokesperson for civil rights. And Willie Johnson Sr. and his son Gerald Orrin Johnson, who published the Black Charlotte Post neighborhood for over 4 decades. It is filled with working class people, and still today, many of the homes have been passed down through generations. Their goal, again, was to slow demolition and redevelopment and protect their neighborhood. We started in October of 2018. There was an overview meeting with the neighborhood and their city council representative. We did a walk and talk tour. We brought in state staff from the State Historic Preservation Office, city staff, and the neighborhood residents. They toured us all around the entire neighborhood. I attended almost every monthly neighborhood meeting to talk about historic districts, what it meant, what the rules are, to make sure that everyone understood what they were truly asking for when they were asking for local districts, what it means. There was a delay in spring of 2020 because of the pandemic. It was supposed to be considered in April or May of 2020, and it did not get passed until December of 2020. There are 3 new buildings in the neighborhood that were built on previously vacant land, but other than that, everything else is the way it was in the 50s and 60s. And the important thing with this is the picture at the top right. We had an open house in First Baptist Church West, really well attended. The lady in the red is Ms. Hood. She's in her 90s and she is feisty and a critical piece of this. But most importantly, it was the neighbors who did the work. This was a grassroots effort. It was not the city coming in and telling them they needed to be a local district. The neighbors were just completely dedicated. They had neighborhood ambassadors. We did postcards for them. They went door to door to tell the people about historic districts, because about maybe 30 people would come to the neighborhood association meetings. There are like 225 houses in the neighborhood. So they made sure to get the word out. Neighborhood participation was critical in this process. And again, it was something that they asked for, ultimately a rezoning. To go through the rezoning process, we require a petition that has to be signed by a minimum of 51% of the neighborhood residents. You need to have, the state has to review all of your documentation, which includes a map, a property by property survey, and historical narrative that Dr. Tom Hanchett, shown in this picture, was invaluable in helping do that, compile all that information for the neighborhood. And if you have those things, you can file for your rezoning, and the neighborhood did, and it went through, and we were thrilled. And we have a similar story in McCrory Heights. It's again right across Oaklawn Avenue. So Oaklawn Parks, you can see just the tip of it right back there. McCrory Heights, kind of similar thing. They started really in spring 2021. It's architecturally intact. You know, it ranges a lot more early 1900s to the 1960s. Great cultural significance in McCrory Heights. If you're not familiar with it, Tom Hanchett again helped us with the developmental history narrative. And it's a lesson in African-American history and civil rights movements in Charlotte. We used to have it posted to the website. We're working on getting it back up there. But if anyone's interested, I will be glad to send it out to you. It's the neighborhood of the first African-Americans to demand to eat in a restaurant at Charlotte's airport, the first to become a top administrator at the CMS school, the first to fight to tee off at an all-white golf course, the first students to walk into an all-white high school in 1957. It gained national attention. Ruby Bridges didn't do that in New Orleans until 1960. The Reginald Hawkins House, he was the first African-American to run for North Carolina governor. He was a dentist and an activist working to integrate the schools. His house is up here. It's been since painted. It's a little slightly different colors here, but he is also a landmark, and his house was firebombed during the 60s. And this neighborhood was so popular among people who fought for desegregation that civil rights leaders from other states and other cities came and specifically settled and retired here. McCrory Heights also they had a team of 4 neighborhood residents who came together and formed an ad hoc committee, and they did the work. Again, they did more work here, and they just took off running. They did door-to-door education, neighborhood meetings. We also did a walking tour with them in the spring of 2021. And then we also did something a little different with McCrory Heights, and through the help with corporate communications, produced a video on YouTube in the summer of 2022 about the history of McCrory Heights and why they were seeking local historic district designation. So Candace, I'll send you the link. You can send it out to everybody, but it's about 6 minutes. It's a great watch. And again, they showed up in force at the public hearing. They all wore red and came to the city council meeting in support of this. And the other thing I should mention is that the boundaries changed between the public hearing and the designation. So even when something goes through a rezoning for historic district, the boundaries aren't the boundaries until city council votes. So the church had always been left out of the boundary, but the church also owned these parcels. And at the public hearing, the church came to speak and say, hey, we saw the boundary also included some of these other parcels that we owned. We would also like those not to be in the district. And the neighborhood leaders were like, sure. And so they contacted us, we adjusted the boundaries, and then this is ended up being what was adopted. So it truly is, like I said, grassroots effort and neighbors working together for this. How am I doing on time? Do I have time? Okay. So totally switching gears again. Candace asked me to share some recent approvals with you all and to talk you through like our decision-making process. Krista, do you want to come up for this one, for these? So this was approved. This is a project that we started in 2022. This was a demolition case. This house came to the commission. How we run demolitions is you apply for demolition first. And while that 1-year clock is ticking, after 3 months, you can come back with new construction plans. And this house, photo documentation, it was severely dilapidated inside. There was a lot of water damage, mold, just all the things. And so the commission did put a 365-day stay on it, but they waived that 90-day waiting period and allowed the people to come back immediately with new construction plans, just given the state of the house. It's here on Merriman Avenue, which West Boulevard's here. This is the Wilmore School, 77 back here. And so this is what was there. And this is what was approved. It was just approved in December. They have not pulled any permits yet. It's not under development. But you can see it's still kind of the similar character. And that's because this whole street is just these little one-story, we call them American small houses, minimal traditional. And they're just, it's the hardest street to redevelop, I think, in our neighborhood, because there is no variety. If you go throughout other streets in Wilmore, Dilworth, Wesley Heights, Plaza Midwood, a lot of times there's a variety. You have a 2-story next to a 1-story, but this is just, it's strictly 1-story houses. So they knew coming in that they weren't going to be able to exceed the height of the tallest house on the block. And so these are Zotwall surveys. So a third-party surveyor strikes the foundations and the heights of all the houses on the street. It's kind of covered up here. I don't know how to get rid of this.
There we go.
Okay,
There we go.
so you can see it's shorter than these other little houses. Like, it was a really short house. And this is what's proposed. And even though you can't see the details, you can tell that it's taller than what was there. So the commission isn't restricting them to the height of what was there. It's just looking at the height of the block. And you can see it down here. All blown up. That it fits in. It's a little bit lower than this house. They have the grade to help them. And it is a number of feet taller than what was there, because what was there was about this tall right here where this dotted line is. Krista, do you want to say anything about the Zotwall surveys and why we asked for them?
Sure. This is something that we require on all of our applications, and it's really critical to our review process, because it really, for us, it really shows the context and the massing and the scale and how it relates to the structures around it. And if they're missing this, we almost immediately just continue the project, because we just can't evaluate the mass and the scale and the appropriateness at that level. So they're very important pieces to our process.
And it shows different things, it'll show where the foundation is, window header heights, eave lines, ridge heights. It's showing, again, the proportions of the different elements of the building and how those relate. And to point out, we provide this as the city. We work with Zotwall. This is not a cost that we put on a property owner. We order these, we pay for these, and we provide them we provide the CAD drawings and the PDF version of these surveys to the architect or whoever's working on the project. So it is not something that the applicants have to come up with on their own.
They just have to accurately put their design and what they're doing and accurately portray to us what they want to do on that site.
Right.
So they bring it back to us with their project inserted.
Okay, our next project I included because this is the first project that we've reviewed of this size in Fourth Ward since the View was constructed. And we're at 6th, and this is Graham Street. Put this up here. 6th and Graham. If you're familiar, the CVS is right here. And up here, if you continue up Graham, you'll end up at the baseball stadium. And then you have Fourth Ward Park kind of running behind. I think this is where the Whole Foods is. Harris Teeter. Sorry, Harris Teeter. So to locate you, and then this is what was there. So it was this 1950s automobile, 1-story, really, they had a little showroom, but pretty heavily, I guess, industrial, I would call it, with all the bays and stuff. This was a bakery that some of you may have remembered. It had a fire, 2014-ish, maybe.
On the plan.
Yeah, so here is, This is that automobile place. This is the bakery. And then this was a parking lot. And this was again, it was a demolition, new construction. And the developer decided to keep the front part of the bakery. And you can just see it right here. This is what was ultimately approved. The commission reviews like the first 5 stories. So they looked at the ground level, all of these step backs, this level steps back even further. You can see the different bays, all the articulation. When it first came to us, it was just one big block, you know, you can see it better here. This was just one continuous block. And the commission asked that they sort of add these breaks to break it up, make it more pedestrian friendly. We worked with them to add the awnings to bring the scale down to the pedestrian level. And they still throughout the project are keeping just the front portion of this building. So this is retail and then residential above, and then this is street side residential with some stoops. So you can see how it's changed. It was a really exciting project for the commission, talking about, you know, something of this scale in Uptown and making sure it transitioned into the neighborhood.
And I would say labor intensive
Mhm.
on all parties, just
Mhm.
because it was, you can imagine, there are so many standards that come into play that we have to review. And I don't know if you said this, but our process is about,
Oh, yeah.
you need
Thank
about 6 months. You need, our process is, you have to, from the beginning to end, we have to reach a decision within that 6-month period from the start of hearing an application for the first time. So something like this, I think that they probably expected to come to us the very first time and say, great, go for it. And we're going to approve this. But it took, I don't know if it took the full, did it take the full 6 months?
did.
And each meeting, it was probably an hour,
At
hour and a
least.
half
Mhm.
of each meeting
Mhm.
that they presented. That just tells you, but this was a huge, obviously very important site and very important project to Fourth Ward.
Mhm.
So we took that very, very seriously.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. The 6 months is critical. It's built into state law that we have 180 days to review all projects. And at that last meeting, the commissions can either approve it or deny it. Usually by the time you get to 6 months, you're not going to get a denial. Usually if it's a denial, it's on first or second round. The commission's really good about trying to work with applicants. So it's not an official rule, but usually if something comes forward and it needs a lot of tweaking, the commission will continue it one time and, you know, give the applicant a chance. But then if the applicant doesn't pay attention to any of the items the commission asked for, then the commission will deny it.
Right.
But we do like to try and work with people, have it be a collaborative process. Yes, sir.
So I know this particular project was Daniel Corporation out
was.
of Birmingham, Alabama.
Mhm.
Did they give you guys any feedback on the process compared to other cities that they've worked with? I know Birmingham has a decent amount of historic properties left, unlike us. So I'd be really interested in that.
I would too. We worked, so we worked closely with Klein, with the architects, not so much Daniel Corporation. They deferred to the local architecture team to work with us through the project. And we're still working with them, but I think that's a great feedback and I'll definitely ask, you know, we're always looking to improve our process. But the other challenge with this that you may have known about is we adopted commercial design standards for the first time in the fall of 2021. And this was the first project that was testing those commercial design standards. So that added another layer of complexity to this review. And it also pointed out some holes in our standards and some things that we thought were really clear that someone else was interpreting a different way. So we have it on tap for our fall retreat to take another look at those and reevaluate, because something that's really important is the design standards. They're a living document. You know, it's not something that we're like, no, sorry, these are the standards. We're always trying to improve them and make sure that they're as user friendly as possible to everybody,
Absolutely.
the applicants and the commission. The biggest change on this project was the back elevation. It faced this row of townhomes. And when it originally came in, it was just this flat, blank wall, totally flat. Like it had, this is the parking deck. And then above it was just siding, maybe some windows, but they were so wonderful to work with creating some architectural design on this back wall that you will see from the street and from these neighbors. And these neighbors are in the 4th ward, and you know, we couldn't ignore them as part of this process. Like they've been there a long time, and all 4 sides of this building are visible. So it's a little different if it's the back wall of a building that fronts to back wall of another commercial structure, right? But this was really important. And this is, I think, where the commission spent a lot of its time at the end.
I would say we often hear comments once we get through a grueling process like this one. Not this one, again, is monumental, but we often hear them get to the end and have that sigh of relief, but also say, you know, this project is better because we went through this process. We often hear that acknowledgement, which makes us feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we're executing the standards how they were meant to be executed.
Yeah. And then the last project is also new construction. It's in Dilworth. Bonterra Restaurants right here. South Boulevard. You have a very massive, it's right here, you can see it. Multifamily, I guess it's mixed use. There's some offices on the 1st floor. Dilworth tasting rooms right here. This is what's there. This went through 2 review cycles, and the neighborhood came out in full force against the first application. The first application is, this is the site plan at the top. It took up, here's the property line, this dash line is the property line. It took up the entire site. It was a very long, it took all 6 months. The meetings on this, I would say, topped out at 2 hours just because of the number of engagement and people speaking on the community about the size, scale, and massing of this project. They decided that they wanted to go in a different direction and submitted a new application at the beginning of this year for a completely different project that was commercial in nature. This was originally going to be multifamily. And this is the site plan that is now currently approved. The building is half the size. There's parking in the back, a lot of green space buffer. And we did not get any neighborhood participation on this. So it was night and day. We always appreciate neighborhood participation. Here's what was originally approved. It received conditional approval. Conditional approval means the commission sending some items to staff to sign off on, because these, as you can tell, they're not construction drawings. We don't require construction drawings. We just require enough to know what to expect. And then people go get their project engineered, go through construction documents, and then staff make sure that the construction documents match what was approved. So this was the long building that was there. It came a long way, you know, with some of these bays, but we were extremely pleased, the commission, and I believe the neighborhood, with the new perspective. There was a different architect involved who has worked with the historic districts before. And they were, while they had a different design, they were asking for some unique features in this building that the commission had never seen before. So it's these windows that when they're closed, they look like double hung windows, but they're awning windows that completely fold up. I guess they're accordion. They completely fold up and open up the
Garage door.
space.
Like a
Mhm.
garage door.
Mhm. And we had never seen this before on a commercial structure. So this is an example of the commission allows for, you know, new innovations and creative thinking in a historic district. It also shows the Zotwall survey and how the building relates to what's there. And Bonterra was our kind of our big comparing point, right? And then the side.
Can you go back to that? quick?
Sure. You
Excuse
want to
me.
say something?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I wanted to just reiterate and let you all know the large multifamily project adjacent is not in the historic district.
It is.
Oh, it is.
It is.
It is. It was, oh, I'm sorry.
It was
I'm getting
new.
this wrong. It was
Yeah.
approved before on our previous standards.
Mhm.
It would never probably be approved
Yeah.
now. So that's one of our challenges too, is we'll have something that was approved 15 years ago and it totally would not happen now. So that was a challenge because they could not use that as
Example.
as an example of something that they could do on this site.
Sorry, that's okay.
Does the historic district go all the way over to South Boulevard?
It does not. It ends.
That's where I was getting confused.
It
It's
ends right here.
Yeah.
It includes these
so
two
across
Yeah.
the street.
across the street. So the new
It's not-
hotel and everything. Yeah. I have a slide in like 2 slides that shows the district boundaries. But anyway, you can just see the design. But this was well received by the commission. And it only took a couple months to be approved. And mostly because the commission asked for just more information about how these windows worked, because we've never seen anything like that. So they're like, we just need to know, give us a drawing, give us some examples, just tell us a little more about what we can expect this to look like once it's built. So this really, I would say, was sailed through the commission.
And I think that's the difference in the experiences, even though it's the same owner, the difference can be when someone really takes these standards that we have and takes that outline and really reads them and really tries to work within those parameters. It doesn't necessarily doesn't mean that everyone has to go hire an architect and pay a lot of money on the front end because they have our staff who's absolutely fabulous. And there are times that they don't call them. And all of a sudden they're confused and we're like, well, did you ask staff that question? So it really takes understanding the standards, which are very detailed.
Yeah. And the other thing the commission does for big projects like this, we have a workshop session before each of our monthly meetings. If you don't have an application filed, you can come and talk to us about your project, and they get the entire commission for 15 minutes to get high level, non-binding feedback about their project and how it may or may not meet the standards. And people of these big projects that take advantage of those workshops and then listen to the feedback that the commission's given them, they get through the process with so much more ease than someone who may come and then not listen or just say, nope, I know what I'm doing. The commission will believe me, and try their luck. So we have all of these things built in to help the applicants. It just takes them taking advantage of all of our services that we offer. And then the last one's just something cool that it's not happened yet, but this is the Leeper Wyatt store here, South Boulevard. You were asking about the district boundaries. It's in pink, is the Dilworth district. This is a local historic landmark, and it is under threat of demolition because of these parcels here I guess they're already assembled and slated for demolition and redevelopment. And the developer has agreed to work with some local business owners to relocate the building. And we are looking at relocating the building. This is Bonterra, next to Bonterra right here. So I can't talk a whole lot about it because we did just get an application for this, but this is coming and this is going to be really exciting if the building does indeed get moved from this location to this location. So keep your eye out. I can keep Candace posted on when that comes to the commission, but this is something that I have not had a chance to be a part of in my career yet, is the moving of a building. And I'm thrilled that the developers are working with everyone and that it's a partnership with the Historic Landmarks Commission, Historic District Commission, and everyone's really working together on this project. So it's one to watch.
Thank you.
Should I answer any questions?
We got questions. I'm going to give Commissioner Gaston, then Commissioner Lansdale. And then
Good afternoon. Thank you for that presentation. Very informative. Is there something, and I thought I heard where the Historic Commission, they're doing something where the front stays the same, but in the back it can be different?
You got it. That's our street side.
Okay.
It's like Party in the back.
front? Yeah.
Business in
This
front,
in
party in the
front,
back.
party in the back,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Solid
It's
overlay.
viewed from the street here.
Yeah.
This diagram shows you what that looks like. Corner lots, or if it's a vacant lot, the whole site will be reviewed. But mid-block, if it's halfway back in the house, so 50% of the lot, 50% of the house, anything in front is reviewed by staff or the commission. But if you're in the back, you're doing a swimming pool, accessory dwelling unit, fire pit, deck, anything in your backyard would not require review. There are a couple of caveats if you're going wider than the house, because that would be visible from the street. If you're putting something within that first 50% of the lot, or if you're changing like the roof line and adding dormers, those would require commission review. I would imagine that if it was a dormer project like this would be a consent agenda item. It would go to the commission, staff says, hey, this looks good. Commission rubber stamp it and then keep moving. But yes, this is new. This does not apply to any of our existing districts. It is just an option for new districts, should a neighborhood wish for this. Mhm.
Is anybody taking you guys up on that yet?
Not yet, but we just started in June, so.
Understood.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yes.
On that initial slide where you had the National Historic
Mhm.
District and what is North Charlotte? What area, what neighborhood is that?
NODA,
Oh,
NODA's
that's-
national, NODA's
Okay.
national. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So Croft was on there too. Commissioner Lansdowne?
Thanks very much. Can you advance a couple of more slides? Just trying to keep
What would you like? Neighborhood character?
just a couple more from there.
Uh-huh,
Looking for the first, there we go. That's
Okay.
one more maybe, please.
okay.
Okay, that's the other map of Beatty's Fork. Okay, I'll stop there. It's okay. We can look at whatever slides up there. Sorry,
Well,
we
I
didn't
can
have
give you, what map do
didn't have
you want?
numbers.
I can go to it.
of the building heights that were different.
Sure.
And the scale. I can't remember the neighborhood you're referencing. Wilmore. That's good.
There you go.
That's good.
Mhm.
Great. So in 1935, we have now designated 8 historic districts.
8 historic districts.
Those 8 historic districts were connected by streetcar.
Most of them, not all of them.
Okay, if they weren't connected, especially on the Wilmore side, they were within walking distance to streetcar.
Correct,
So with that said, there was no 277.
right.
In the age of an 80-year-old Charlottean, right? We had a community that did not have extensive parking built for these sites. These are small houses, small plots. These roads, on some of these roads, have not been touched since the 50s and 60s, except for population has increased. The number of vehicles has been increased. The advance of highway system and the separation of neighborhoods through the removal of public transportation is impacting us now directly and is encroaching on every part of the city's work in equity, housing, accessibility, social mobility. So I want to make that note here, because as we look at the map of just 80 years ago in our transportation system and the association of how you can live, work, and thrive in our community without owning a vehicle, it's just extraordinary how we change our land use at a whim, at an incremental pace that essentially destroys much of the fabric now that we're trying to protect. So thank you for letting me make that comment, because it's a significant part of my transportation representation on this commission to understand the impacts of some of the decisions we make there. Does the Historic Commission, my direct question is, does the Historic Commission have a code enforcement wing?
We work with code enforcement, yes. So how it works is if there is a complaint that someone has violated the historic district standards or has started building something without a building permit, we work with code enforcement, which is located out of Housing and Neighborhood Services. How they have it currently structured is there are 3 officers we work with. Officer Savian Davis is over McCrory Heights and Oakland Park, so we know to go to him for those issues. Mandy Edwards is over all of the other neighborhoods except Plaza Midwood. So if that's an issue, we work with her. We work with them all the time, one-on-one, but everything goes through the zoning compliance process, like other zoning compliance issues.
Great. I know there's some I'm taking it from 1935 back up to today. So there's been a bill that's been ratified that reorganizes the Building Code Council and has an opportunity for a municipal representative at the code enforcement of 1 and 2 level to be represented by the governor on this council
Oh.
to impact the building code for all of the state of North Carolina, as well as land development regulations. So if there's opportunities and eagerness for the city's staff to serve at the state level, it would be great to have someone represent Mecklenburg County at the state level on this newly reorganized Building Code Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, maybe we can talk about that. Okay, thanks.
My question also had to do with code enforcement, and that was, have you seen sort of bait and switch, between the plans and the end results happen very often? I'm sure there's got to be a percentage.
There is, how we handle that is, so the commission approves one thing. I make sure when I'm issuing the certificate of appropriateness that the plans match what the commission approved, maybe with some minor tweaks, like staff has a little bit of ability to minorly change things. Then we send it to the contractor. If we know the contractor at that time, or the architect and property owner, we tell them to review it with their contractor. Where the gap we've had is we would love for contractors to meet with us to go over COA plans so that they understand. We have holds at the end of projects, so they can't get their certificate of occupancy, excuse me. We review the project on the back end. So staff will go out, look at the COA plans and say, okay, yep, this matches. Nope, they added a window here, or they took one away here, or something's off. They added a back porch here, and then we work through it at the end. If we can staff review it, great. If not, then it has to go to the commission for the review. But we try to educate property owners and say, look, call us. We will meet with you on site during construction and talk through issues. You just have to call us. The bad thing is, contractors mean well, and they'll throw in like a bonus, like they'll do something extra for the property owner to be kind. And 9 times out of 10, it turns out to be something that we can't maybe approve at the staff level. So we tell them, just call us. We'll be there. We'll help you through it. But we do have a person on staff who does the enforcement process and checks all of these major projects at the end.
Commissioner Seeley?
Yeah, can you go to the multifamily building in Dilworth real quick? No, go back one. So this one is interesting for me. Well, first of all, I'm assuming parking was on the bottom floor of this building previously. So how do we balance the need for more housing in the city and this process with the Historic Landmarks Commission or Historic District
Yep.
Commission? Because a block and a half away from this building, there's a 40-story building that is planned.
Right.
So this being a block and a half from that would be a transitional district to a high density area.
Right.
So this seems needed more than the commercial building. So I'm just wondering, because we're really trying to get away from surface level parking.
Right.
So, and they only used half of the property.
Right.
So where is that balance there?
It's
And I know it's in response to the community.
these are great questions and questions that the commission got during the review. This parcel is designated as a TOD zoning. So TOD, depending on the use, regulates the number of required parking spaces. And when this was multifamily, I believe there were 8 parking spaces here, mostly for not for the residents. And the thought was that these would be micro units. I think they were 200 and 300 square feet, and the residents would not have parking. And so there was a debate during the commission review. And again, we couldn't opine on it because we don't regulate parking. That's done by the UDO, the TOD. But that was a big concern of the neighbors, is the fact that this was, so many units, there was not parking allowed, and they thought that people would be parking on the street and then further causing parking issues in an already congested area.
Gotcha.
So, it's
But
I hear you.
Yeah, it is an 8-minute walk from a train station.
It is. And
So-
that's what the applicant was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, the commission can't talk about parking, we can't talk about affordable housing.
Mhm.
But I know that there are people like Krista and some other former commissioners that when they're not working with the commission, they are working on affordable housing issues for the city. So,
That's the hard hat to wear sometimes
Mhm.
because we can't.
Yeah.
mhm.
Some of us certainly hear what they're trying to do and we appreciate what they're trying to do. But we can't, it's not in our purview to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shaw?
Hi, yes, thank you. This presentation was great and very enlightening for those of us not deeply sort of focused on the historic district and the sort of creation of those districts. One question on the 2 districts that were created recently, were there meaningful concerns from residents about how being sort of added as a historic district would impact property values? And if so, did you all have or did you procure, whether it's local or statewide or national data? And kind of what does that data say if it was something that you all had access to or someone?
That's a great
affiliated?
question. So in historic districts, we cannot take into account personal finances or economics. We have not done any research about the impacts of these 2 new districts. The neighborhood was reacting to the fact that the underlying zoning allows for, 48 feet by right heights. And these houses in these neighborhoods are 1, 2, 2.5 stories at most. And saw some of the development going on in neighboring neighborhoods. And then also, wanted to protect this historic character of their neighborhood. So, it's not right for every neighborhood. It is not an answer to, the property value issue. I think it's one tool in the toolbox that you have to use with other programs and initiatives at the city. I do know one thing even though it's not in our wheelhouse, we do connect people whenever we can with housing and neighborhood services and their like lead-based paint grants. They have grants for assistance to create wheelchair ramps, update bathrooms and kitchens, and keep people in their homes long-term. So we try and be a connector when we can. But that's a great question. That would be a really interesting study. Other cities have done economic studies about historic districts and the values and how they've weathered different markets and like foreclosures, but we haven't done that here yet.
We'll close it out with the last question from Commissioner Blumenthal.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. I had, I guess we'll call it the pleasure of going through that process with my personal home. So very familiar with the historic district process. No, I think just to synthesize kind of the point that some of the most recent questions are getting at, because of frankly, the attractive infill locations of some of the historic districts, this question of density is not going to stop, right? I don't think that anybody anticipates that you're going to receive fewer applications for things like this. My question relates more to, and I guess, is it in the HDC, purview with some of these duplexes, triplexes, some of the less dense, but not specifically single family residences? Obviously, the architectural component is something that you guys have full oversight over, right?
Mhm.
But in terms of the remaining questions, the density, I guess, other overlay conditions, how do you anticipate kind of the reception to some of those projects?
So if you drive through our historic districts, there's naturally occurring
Right.
mixed use housing. Like we have 4 quadruplexes, we have duplexes, we have triplexes. They are scattered throughout the district. And sometimes you would never know because they're in the same kind of scale and massing as everybody else. It's historical development pattern. It's what exists there now. And for us, it's not if it's a duplex, triplex, or quad, it's does the form of the building fit?
Okay.
And so we just approved a new duplex on South Mint Street, and it looks like an old quadruplex, but it's really, I guess guess it's two townhomes essentially, even though it looks like an old quadruplex.
Mhm.
And on East Boulevard, the new.
And
one.
on East Boulevard, across from Paper Skyscraper,
Mhm.
there's new multifamily there. But yeah, the commission, it's about the appearance, not the use. And
Okay.
the struggle that we've had has actually been the opposite. And it's been taking these small duplexes and turning them into single family. And so we're
Interesting.
losing some of this naturally occurring housing choice in the neighborhoods. I can name like 5 off the top of my head that's happened to in Wilmore and Wesley Heights and
The
Dilworth.
smaller,
Mhm.
especially, yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, ladies, for bringing the knowledge. And we'll have you back sometime soon. I do hope you'll keep us in the loop on some of the overlay things as those zonings become known. And, because I had a conversation with folks about the neighborhood character overlay, the one I call the mullet overlay, which I guess you guys call the street side overlay.
Yes.
That was very interesting. And I think we will want to know about that as we go forward, because some of these zonings, the UDO is brand new, it's doing its thing, but we're gonna have to know more about that sooner or later.
Well, we have only had one application for neighborhood character overlay. And we will see where that goes.
Okay,
But when one gets in the process, I'd love to come back. And I know I didn't get to talk much about neighborhood character or RIO, but glad to come back again and just
Okay.
talk about overlays. So thank you for
love
having
to have you
us.
back.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. We'll give these folks a second to get on. The thing I want to, we lost a few people, so we'll give it a second. This must have been the potty break part. We were just missing Terry and Andrew. All right, everybody. This is for the remainder of the time we have here, I'd like to talk about what we're going to do in the next year and those types of things. And you've got a couple of pieces of paper here. One of them says CMPC programming, and the other one talks about the committees. I had the time and opportunity to talk to most of you guys about what you wanted to see going forward in the year. And I think I was able to glean a lot. And there's a lot of times what I do is I erupt on page. That's all I do. Just get everything out and, put it out there and make sure that everybody, that all the things are there in front of you and you have a choice to like it or not like it. But what I'd like to talk about is, first of all, where we're going next year. And if you will give me a second to find where that particular thing is, my goal for the next year is to enhance our ability to educate and influence our parent governing organizations and the public regarding land use and in relation to growth in the city and development in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. Big picture, but I'd really like us to influence that as much as possible. And so when I put all this stuff down here on paper, the programming notes, these are topics I'd like for us to discuss in our meetings. And everybody's got the notes here in front of you. Yeah, I don't expect you to zip through this and say yay or nay, but I do hope that you guys will take a look at this. We're having an executive committee meeting next Monday. And in our executive committee meeting, I would like to already begin to set our agenda for the next year. So please take this home with you, look at it, say, Douglas, this is a good idea. This is a crappy idea. And get back to me in regard to that. I think some of these we've talked about some of these before. I was excited about the construction technology one. And one of the things I thought was really cool is the local AIA has a construction technology group. Well, let's work together with those folks and get them to come in and talk to us about how things are being built in terms of new residential, new commercial, new retail. so that we can understand that in terms of how it affects the work that we do on this commission. You know, things, you know, we don't, it's slightly radioactive, but we don't talk about short-term rentals. But what if we did? What if we talked about corporate ownership? I guess the county is doing a little bit of work in that direction, but let's have somebody come in and talk to us about those sort of things, so that we're we understand and we're prepared for that. So if you would, again, take the programming thing, look it over. We have executive committee meeting next Monday. I'm going to throw these all on the table at that meeting. If you don't want one of them, or you got a better one, nobody has a better one than me, but if you have a good idea, please send it to me. Amendments to these we're wide open. Okay, if you can think of another group that needs to be in there, let me know. All right. Clinton is like smiling at me like, man, I am ready to get my red marker out. But yeah, these are things that, again, I think that we all need to consider going forward. I'd like to have our agenda for the different topics that we're going to talk about set as early as possible, so we can get the word out, so that, you know, we had historic districts come today, and unfortunately we didn't have a lot of bandwidth to get that message out. But if there might be some folks in different neighborhoods that want to get that message out or hear that message. So if we talk about construction technology or any of these things that I've said here, that we might get the public. I want to see the public sitting in some of these seats behind us, not just the 14 of us having a party. So that's one thing, the particular programs and possible topics. Now, the second one is the committees that I'd like to put together. And I talked to you guys about these a good bit. I'm pretty sure everybody kind of heard some essence of all of these things. And there are 4 committees that I'd like to get put into place for the next year. And we'll give a high level overview of them. You can ask some questions if you like. If you have an interest, please let me know. But we can have 3 people on a committee, right? And there's 14 people on the commission. So I'm just saying, everybody gets to have an opportunity to be on a committee. So feel the love. And I don't believe any of these committees will stress or strain anybody. I think they'll be kind of fun. The first committee I want to talk about is the pipeline committee. Twofold adventure, to find us potential future candidates and to establish relationships with all those organizations and entities in the community that develop leaders, so that we can have those organizations and those future leaders look at us as a place that they want to serve the community. We want to have great leaders going forward, and the only way we're going to do that is to develop and nurture a relationship with those organizations out there that are building leaders. And we got to do that. And so that group of 3 people might get together and say, come to each one of us on the commission and say, who do you know that's interested in doing this? They might go to Leadership Charlotte and say, hey, can we come talk to your group? Can your group come to one of our meetings and see what we do? That sort of thing. There's fraternities and sororities all over this town that do these things. There's professional groups that do leadership development. Let's figure out how to get the best leaders from that group to want to be in what we're doing. So that's what I call the pipeline committee. All right. The community committee is about us influencing neighborhood leaders so that whenever a rezoning sign pops up, we have somebody in that neighborhood whose hair does not catch on fire because there's a yellow sign with a blue Z on it, right? And the way that we go about doing that is that what I would like us to have is, again, there's 20 seats sitting back here empty behind us. I would like to find a way for us to invite community leaders in each time to come sit in this meeting so they won't be shocked or unknowledgeable about what we're doing. And this committee basically, we could send these people email. That's lovely. But if you can pick up the phone and call somebody and personally invite them, then we're real human beings. And I would like for us to be real human beings with the community. I would like for us to find a place and a way to go out, and I am going to try and do this. I'm going to say it out loud now, so I'm stuck with it. every month, I'm going to go to at least one community meeting for one neighborhood around the city. Okay? I'd love it if you all would join in that party with me. But if we get this committee together, it's their responsibility, quote unquote, to find places for us all to possibly land and just go, if you can go, if you can commit to going to one a quarter, that's fine. We get out, and Will and Courtney and I were at the District 4 Town Hall, right? The folks in the District 4 Town Hall may have had an opportunity available for us to provide some extra education for what they wanted to do. Let's just go with it that way. You will find that in lots of places. And if we can have a human conversation with those folks, that's what we need to do. So I'm asking you guys for the next year to commit to going out there. This committee, again, let's bring those people in. All right. Let's make sure the seats on the side are not empty the next time we have this party. Okay. And so that's the community committee that I would like to put together. And then the collaborations committee is next. And I want to work with folks at probably a lot of professional level entities. I talked about construction technology. Well, the American Institute of Architects is in town. They have a construction technology section or whatever they call it. Please forgive me, AI people. But how do we work with those folks to bring more knowledge to this commission about how the things they do affect the growth of the city? And how do we find other groups to work with to do the same thing? We can talk about groups like REBIC or ULI. Have made some connections with ULI, and hopefully we'll be able to get out with those. Charlotte Real Estate Women isn't that one? Yeah, we need to find those folks and make those connections. And so the collaborations thing is, you know what, we did the, what did we call our thing in the spring? The Planning Commission and the community or whatever, conversations. My thing is the most successful one was the one that we worked with Sustain, Charlotte, by far. Let's find some other folks. And not to disparage Sustain in any shape, form, or fashion, but we've used them a lot. Let's find some other folks to have parties with, because when we have parties with other folks, it appears to be more successful than when we just do it on our own. So that's what the collaboration committee is all about. It's finding those people that we can work with, and let's work with them to get the understanding of what we do more deeply embedded in this community. And so, not just to do that for this year. If we establish these relationships correctly, then for years to come, somebody will say, oh, we did that last year. That was kind of fun. You guys went Tree Charlotte. I'm going to throw them out there, maybe throwing them under the bus. But, they used to do the State of the Canopy. There is no reason why we shouldn't be involved in that in some shape, form, or fashion. And that's an event that occurs on an annual basis. So those are the types of things. One more committee, and I'm going to leave that to Commissioner Blumenthal to just kind of give an idea of what is going to be involved there.
This is Commissioner Blumenthal. I'll take full credit for the whole description forthcoming. But long story short is obviously we had this committee last year. So this is the one of the four that's not going to be brand new. And again, I think that we were, very happy that we were able to pass the rezoning review considerations. We have a kind of brand new stamped environmental statement as of 2023 now, or fiscal year 2022-23. And so really the goal of the Environmental and Sustainability Committee, outside of, trying to coordinate with the other subcommittees that we're creating, is just to make sure that what the work that we have already been doing is implemented in the decision-making process through the Planning Commission. So whether that's on the zoning committee, making sure that the review considerations document is something that we factor in the decisions that we make, or in the planning committee, whether it's mandatory referrals or anything else that we do, making sure that work is also relevant on that front. And yeah, I think that the committee itself can flesh out other roles beyond that, but on a high level is just, again, make sure that the environmental and sustainability conversation is always relevant in what we're doing.
All right. Now, how do we get from us talking about this in this meeting to hopefully next Monday with executive committee meeting, saying Aaron and Clayton and Shauna are going to do this one. I would appreciate it if you guys will take these to heart. Think about what you feel like is the place where you may naturally be best at making a contribution, and get back to me before the end of the week. I'll bug you if you don't. I know all your numbers, right? But I would love for us to begin the work as soon as possible, because I think that if we are successful in doing this work, that it will, again, I want to enhance our influence in the community. And if people know that we can provide them with good information and help them along through the process, then I think it will be very successful going forward. So that's question. Go ahead.
So I appreciate the descriptors. I appreciate our conversation regarding the committee's forthcoming. Fantastic. But again, for me to understand effectiveness and to be effective as I really want to be, it would help me if I had some goals for what you're trying to have for your community, for these committees to affect change for the 23-24 year.
Okay.
So
In each one of these, I've got some key results. And there's usually 2 or 3 key results down there. Those are the starting point, and I always say that I'm married to nothing.
Okay.
I'm married, but that's another story. It was a general thing. It was a general thing. Yeah, I know. I am so in trouble when I get home. Anyway, but for instance, how many people do we want to have from the community come to these meetings? If there are 3 people and everybody calls 1 person a month, then we have 3 people coming. Is that enough? Maybe not. The committee itself needs to set some of those things. And Commissioner Blumenthal and I will be there to help you all the way down the line with that. Yeah, and I think the committees get to define themselves a little bit in that regard. Go ahead.
Commissioner Blumenthal, Candace, I had one quick question for you procedurally. Say we get a ton of feedback over the next few days and we meet next Monday in our executive committee meeting, can we finalize that then, or is that something that needs to happen with the full commission vote for the subcommittees? So, okay. Okay, great. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. These are just ad hoc committees, and hopefully they prove their value for a long term, but we'll have these as we go forward. Now, any other questions? Let me not stop. Yeah.
Sorry, just
Commissioner Shaw.
related to Commissioner Blumenthal's question, would committee meetings, I guess, number one, how frequently would you foresee the committee, how frequently would you foresee the need for the committee to meet? And number 2, are the committee meetings held to a similar, standard or public access as the commission and zoning and planning meetings?
These committees will be made up of 3 people, which means that we do not have to notice any meetings that they have. The committees, I will leave it up to you guys to work as well together as you work. I will talk Shauna and Rick, and I'll throw them under the bus with me. We got together with the rules of procedure interlocal 3 times, and that was all that was necessary. Now, some of these, you may establish, the communities committee, you may establish, okay, we're going to do this many every month. Somebody may be in charge of hooking up with neighborhood and business services to find out who we're going to call. And the other 2 people may be responsible for making the phone calls. So however it works, let's focus on getting the result, the process that you guys follow to get there. I don't want to dictate that part. Commissioner Rhodes?
Are we looking to use some of our retreat time to kind of funnel through the committees, like to make sure that we have a plan for the year?
That's a good question. And I was going to get to that. Do you guys want to have a retreat? What kind of retreat do you want to have? And et cetera. And I will express my opinion after you all give me back your feedback. Go ahead, Commissioner Neely.
A teamwork type event, something where we learn to work together get to know each other on a little bit more of a personal basis. Something that can make us a little bit more cohesive as a group.
We have a bar crawl on the, can you still, do they still have the beer trucks down, the beer bites downtown? Obviously, yeah. Gosh, we've so gone off the rails here.
I would echo Commissioner Neely and say, I think it'd be good to have a get to know you or leadership and skills session as well. But I also think that if we could set some goals for the year, whether to, as Commissioner Rhodes said, whether for the committees, but also maybe for the, whatever is needed on the planning and zoning level as well. I think it would be helpful to dedicate, maybe half and half.
Okay, all right. Anybody else got a?
Agree. I agree.
I'm seeing some head shaking.
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Sealy? Gaston?
Yes, I agree.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Gaston has weighed in, and apparently that is the last word. Love you all.
Although this Commissioner Glenville, I think that I echo that. Part of the traditional retreats, there has been some sort of team building activity. I think that we can potentially improve upon that a little bit, right? Beyond just the classic office boardroom, get to know you, right? I think that the work program, and we can talk about some of this in executive committee. I think that the work program, whatever form that may take, will be interesting. That's something that could potentially be informed by these committees as well, right? As opposed to how we've done in the past, which was essentially creating quasi committees anyway, right? By having commissioners volunteer or be voluntold to work on certain things, the committees may assume a lot of that responsibility. So something to think about, especially if you do volunteer yourself and find yourself on one of these subcommittees. I think that's something that's definitely intriguing.
I will be working with Candace in the next few days, probably. We will plot out something, and I would like Commissioner Winokur.
I wasn't trying to interrupt. Please.
Well, I was just going to say, I will try and get us started on this by executive committee meeting next Monday, but go ahead.
I just wanted to pitch for a second the School of Government. They have a lot of resources for Planning Commission. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're 3 hours away. So I don't know what resources are available to us that would be beneficial, and maybe not this year, but I just wanted to throw out School of Government.
Thanks, sir. Train tickets are cheap. Did I say that out loud? We'd even get you a round trip train ticket. How about that? All right, we're good. Are we good on that? We will have a retreat. It will be in September. Can we have a retreat and a regular meeting? Ooh. How do you guys feel about if we had a retreat and a regular meeting? Anybody? Yay. I've got one. Commissioner Lansdale.
The Lansdale for caveat would have to be in the latter part of February after September 16th.
Okay. Okay. All right. That said February, but we know that your brain is just that much in advance of our
15 steps.
different time zone. So do I see any other total objections to that? And we will work with schedules and we will see what support we have. That sound, I'm looking over there like I said, yeah. Commissioner
I
Sealy.
have a question about the programming.
Go ahead.
Would this be at the planning of the executive committee, or would we be able to weigh in on some of this as well? I'd love to help facilitate the major development projects overview.
We will rope you in appropriately, buddy.
Okay.
That's yeah, because one of I asked Candace about planning meetings, and basically I said, do I need to go find these people, or does she find the people? And there are relationships that staff has that are the best part of that. And then there are relationships that we as commissioners have that may be the best part of that. So thank you for volunteering to help with the major projects. But yeah, we will, when we can see that there's something that you guys can do. For instance, one of the things on there is the Nest Commission. And Commissioner Gaston is a Nest. Are you guys commissioners too? Yeah, and I spoke with Justin Harlow a couple of weeks ago, and that they're doing a report to council, I guess, in January, and it's like, hey, you guys come on over and blah, blah, blah. this is the person I'm going to call and say, hey, can you guys do this? So it is whoever can help. I'm not, I just stand up and blather a lot. I'm not necessarily the person that needs to go do everything. You guys are much better at doing some of this stuff than I am. And I'm going to hopefully give you an opportunity to shine at that. Simple as that. All right. Couple more things here on my list, and then we're going to give you guys homework. Okay. We had last year rules of procedure and interlocal agreement. There was a group of us that got together and spent some time on that. I'm going to issue my personal opinion. I believe that the only part of that needs to be carried forward is the rules of procedure. I believe that screwing with the interlocal agreement will get us into a morass of legalese and discussions about things that may not necessarily produce results, and that we can produce results in a much better way. The rules of procedure we can adopt simply by nodding our heads in this meeting. I think that we kind of got to a place where we know what needs to be changed there. And I think some of those things are just very mechanical. We need to change the date that we have our meeting. Yay, that's easy. So what I'm going to propose is that next time we meet in September, because we're not going to have an August meeting, although I'd like to have one. The next time we meet, there will be a final version of the rules of procedure. And you will receive that document at least a week before the meeting. You can read it and we can just approve this thing. All right. Does anybody want to go through another year of working with the rules of procedure in the interlocal? Amazingly, no one appears to want to do that. Let's just let that one be. All right. We're getting close. Community area planning. Everybody knows community area planning is going on all around the city. Everybody in this room knows that community area planning is going around all over the city. I'm not sure about the city knowing that community area planning is going on. There are 8 community area plan sessions left. And I talked to Alicia, who's in charge of the big, what's Alicia's actual title? Yeah, God Emperor. And so I read science fiction when I was young, just go with me. So what I would like for us to do this week, there are 3 sessions at Marion Deal. There's a virtual session tomorrow. Thursday night, there's an in-person session, and Saturday, there's the morning session. I got those covered. All right. Now that means there will be 7 sessions left. And amazingly, there are 7 planning committee commissioners out there. I would love if you guys would just take one of those meetings and say, okay, I'm going to go. All right. Let us give some presence and support to staff in the community area planning process. I believe that the ones that are coming forward, I believe there's some momentum for these sessions that are to be done between September, correct me if I'm wrong, September and December-ish. Those will be well attended, or there will be better attendance. So having commissioners there would be a good thing. I'm just throwing that out. So please consider that. Community engagement. If you guys have not, is everybody going to a community meeting where they talk about a rezoning? If you have not, let me know. I'm going to one on Wednesday evening. It's a virtual one. I'll send you the link. And let's do that. You need to understand, I just go sit in the back of the room. And when it's virtual, I don't say a thing. And sometimes I don't even put my picture up. A live picture. The regular picture of me is incredibly good looking. So that's just, we go with that. But as it were, we don't have to actively participate in those, but you do get the temperature of the neighbors. And to understand that, I think is crucial, particularly for those of you who are on zoning and those of you who are going to be on zoning in the future, which is everybody else that isn't being talked to about it now. So that I will also say one more thing, and Monica left, but the Design Center is having movie night, and they are showing the movie The Myth of Pruitt-Igoe. And if you guys aren't aware about Pruitt-Igoe, Pruitt-IGO. I think I got that right. Housing project St. Louis, post-war. Man, it's an interesting thing, and it's going to play into your homework slightly as well. But that's on the 30th of August, and it's something that perhaps you should, 30th or 31st, I can't remember, but one of those days. I'll make sure we get that out to you. That's something to go out and again, be in the community, because there's going to be a discussion afterwards. I'm sure people are going to say, well, how do we do affordable housing? And you can hear people say what they have to say about that. You don't necessarily have to contribute, but you can hear what people have to say about it. All right, I think I'm almost done. I have homework for you. Oh, yeah, and I have homework for you, and after that, we will be done, and the planning committee will have to get their vice chair set, because we now have enough people to vote on that. Your homework's there are two books. One book is called Bowling Alone. It's by Robert Putnam. Came out in 2000. It talks about change in American society. There's another book called Coming Apart. It is by Charles Murray. It came out in 2010. One of the things we talk about and do with this whole adventure quite a bit is we talk about land use, blah, 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 a whole lot. Who do you think uses the land? The people of this country. And both of these books talk about changes in American society that I think are probably very relevant for us to understand why some neighbors don't want to have an apartment complex in their backyard. You know, why certain neighbors are perfectly fine piling 5,000 people into a square kilometer. Those are things that these books talk about. And so I would like, you don't have to read the books. You can find plenty of discussions about them. They come from very different angles. But the two authors, who are both college professors and well respected for their ability to aggregate data, I'll just put it that way. They oftentimes, you can find, I think I saw it on CNN where Robert Putnam was talking about Charles Murray, and he's like, yeah, we talk about the same thing, we just approach it from different points of view. The Bowling Alone started as an article, so you can read that. I think it's 13 pages long. You don't want to read the book, it's like 400 and something, whatever. There's plenty of discussion about that, but I want us to also this year, a lot of times I'm trying to give you homework every meeting that talks about the human side of building a city, because you know what, a sustainable city isn't a bunch of LEED certified buildings. It is having people in it that want to be there and want it to be something in perpetuity. And so take those notions of books, and if you can read them, that's fine. If you can't, that's fine too. I just throw that out there as something to spark some ideas. Coming Apart, which I shall email to you, I'm told. I shall email to you links to both of those. They are all available at the library. Do not do the audiobook. I'm just saying, coming, I have Coming Apart at the house, and it's got 8 million graphs in it, and audiobooks and graphs are just not your friend. Yeah. And again, if you are a C-SPAN nerd, you can find commentary from these folks on C-SPAN, YouTube, whatever, and they will address these things. And I think we're almost at the very end, and now we need to, I will turn over to Commissioner Blumenthal to do a selection of the vice chair of the planning committee. So this is just for those.
Sorry, Chairperson Wilson, I have one quick thing. So if the zoning committee members are going to leave for this, which I hope they're not, I want to make sure that they hear.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that we filed a minor but important text amendment that will be coming before council for public hearing next Monday.
Okay.
And then of course, it'll be going to zoning committee after that. We found around 3 subdivisions that were developed under office or commercial zoning districts in the past that when translated to something that made the subdivisions non-conforming. So we are proposing and have already filed a very minor text amendment that says if you were built before June 1st of 2023 and these zoning districts, it is an allowed use. It is that simple.
Okay,
It's 3 subdivisions that we found thus far, but if there are others that are in this scenario, it would also apply to them. But it'll be coming before public hearing Monday and then to zoning committee after that.
did I see on the UDO site that there was some discussion of that or something?
Yeah, so they have, because we like to have an info
Yeah,
session,
yeah.
so particularly for those that are in the neighborhoods, because one of them did make the news. Wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to ask questions, but it would
Okay,
remove their non-conforming status by adoption.
check charlotteudo.com or org or whatever it is. And on the front page, I think one of the meetings is tomorrow.
Tomorrow and the next day.
Okay, tomorrow and the next day. If you want to, if you feel like having a text amendment is a part of your lunch diet is a really good thing, then you're welcome to do that.
Yes, it's very minor, would consider an administrative amendment
Okay,
type or administrative type of text amendment.
all right. Anything else? All right, people, we're gonna do this. Oh, calendar. Yeah, I'm gonna do calendar and then we'll
Get there.
get there, okay? Monica, is the Myth of Pruitt-Igoe the 30th or the 31st? You have no earthly idea what goes on in your office. Anyway, just to remind folks, because of the skipped zoning work session for city council, tonight at 5 o'clock, we have public hearings. So all of you on zoning, we will be back here again at 5 because we love the place. There will also be a zoning meeting next Monday. Okay, the executive committee will meet next Monday. The 18th is planning committee. That should be a Tuesday, not a Monday. Planning committee meeting is next Tuesday. The zoning work sessions, and there will be multiple zoning work sessions. And I think I told Dave this, but maybe I didn't yet. On the 1st and the 3rd, because we're going to have 2 sets of public hearings this time. I know I sent the committee members this. We're going to have a zoning work session on the 1st and the 3rd of August. Both of those are going to start from 5 to 7:30. I'm not sure if I got the word from the committee. I'm not sure if I sent it on. All right, planning committee. Commissioner Blumenthal has the floor.
Thank you. So we have 4 of our planning committee members. Obviously myself, Commissioners Gaston, Shaw, and Rhodes. And then we also have Commissioner Harvey, who's unable to make it today. Just for your awareness, Teresa McDonald has been nominated, I guess appointed, but not sworn in. She will be joining us next week, from what I was told. And then County Commission is gonna make us wait with bated breath until September for our 7th member, but there will be somebody forthcoming. But since we do have 4 people here, we have quorum. So similar to the zoning committee at the beginning of this meeting, at this point, I would like to open the floor for nominations for the vice chair of the planning committee, who will also be serving on the executive committee with myself, Chairman Welton, and Commissioner Russell.
I nominate myself, Commissioner Rhodes, Courtney Rhodes.
Thank you, Commissioner Rhodes. Anybody else? Do we have to say this 3 times? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right, Commissioner Rhodes, thank you for your self-nomination. We need to vote. Okay, now amongst the 4 all in favor of Commissioner Rhodes as vice chair of the planning committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on Monday.
We'll see you on Monday. Is there any other business, or can I hear a motion for us to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn, Sealy.
That is, and we got the motion, we got the second. We're out of here, people. It's 2:01. I think we did okay.
I'm excited. I think.
I have.
We'll talk to you.
I'm trying to catch that.